Okay, I think, yes, I think I can talk. So it's now 4 p.m. And we are ready to begin. I think we will just let 1 minute more for those who want to join us. We'll let this minute. We will give them this minute, and we will begin. So yeah. Okay, I think we can start right now. Nice to see and hear everyone, or read if we're talking about chat. My name is Ilya. I will be today's speaker on the webinar. And we're going to talk today about Google Analytics 4. And this is kind of huge topic. Like we had for this topic, we had the most registrations than that in this series of our webinars. And like before moving to an introduction of this webinar, I would like just to ask you some questions. And if you are with me, please write something to our chat in YouTube. And yeah, there are some people with us. Just two questions I have to understand who joined us today. The first one, can you please describe just a few words? What do you do? For example, you're working in marketing, or you're working with this kind of a project, just to understand, like, what do you do really? What are the audience? For me to correct my speech. And the second, that's the question I love. Please write just in 2 words, how do you feel about Google Analytics 4 right now? So everything you listened before, you bring everything that you heard from the community, you read, please just read. How do you feel about that? I will tell how I feel just a few moments later. And yes, I see some people are with us. So I'm like waiting for your answers. Just before I will look in my chat, I have it here on my phone. So sometimes I will look down, not in the camera, and I will do the intro and then get back to your feedback. So yeah, a short Obox intro and myself. My name is Ilya, and that's how my face looks like sometimes when I'm trying to get GA4 and adapt it to this reality we have right now. And sometimes when I have to understand the new features in GA4, so that's a bit kind of complicated face. And also some words about Obox. We are a product-led company, so we're building tools to simplify the process of working with reporting in companies of our clients. And we really believe in our mission. We really believe that every decision maker has to deal with their data freely, and that's why we simplify the process of doing reports. And we are here today, why we're speaking right now, because like on the way to become this kind of product-led company, we have grown our analytics expertise on implementing and consultancy based on Google Analytics service as a service partner, as a reseller. We've made more than 100 universal integrations and more than 30 Google Analytics 4 integrations. So now we are here and we are ready to speak about that with you. So yeah, we have some answers. See about Google Analytics, how you feel about Black Box, great comment. Nobody can understand what's that. Frightens, great comment. Discovery the face, also great one. And I kind of think that I just understand the audience. Thank you very much for that feedback. If you want to write something else to the chat, please write. Sometimes I will go to this chat and during my presentation, I will answer the questions if you have them. Yeah, we're gonna speak today about Google Analytics. It is coming, Google Analytics 4. And I promised to say how I feel about that, and I have two feelings. The first feeling is I don't know how to really say about the feeling. I feel that it's huge. Why do I feel like that? Because I'm comparing to the Universal when it was like announced several years ago. And of course, that time the internet was not so popular, of course, and the Google Analytics didn't have that kind of community. But now Google Analytics 4 has had a lot more voice in the community, and about that tool, community speaks louder. And so what do we really hear about Google Analytics 4? Why it is huge, why it seems to be huge. So we see when we hear in many topics, in many articles, that Google Analytics 4 is like a new trend, is completely new, maybe not for analytics, but for Google, it's a huge change. Also, we see and we hear that Google Analytics will change the way of analysis. It will come to cross-device user behavior, not just different types of platform. It's just like an overview about the user. And it sounds great, but maybe not that kind of, don't have that kind of clearness. And also there is a great rumor, like in every chat, you can see that you have to migrate now, not before the date of Universal Sunset was announced, not before July 1st in 2023, but now, like this July. And it sounds like complicated. Why do we have to do that? Because like the data won't migrate there, maybe because we won't have the ability to get reports year on year. There are a lot of questions, and that's why I feel huge about that, because it's really big change. And for the second opinion, which we're talking with clients, I've seen this comment there, and there was frightened comments from Victor. Thank you for that. I also feel frightened sometimes when speaking with clients, but in a different way. Why? So when we are starting to speak about moving process, and when this date was announced, the 1st of July, it started to have like some kind of a pushing effect on the clients. So they understand that they have to move in a year or even earlier. And that becomes like they don't have any kind of alternative way to do that. They have to move. And they started asking questions like, really, like I've heard that there are a lot of like functionality that is not ready. There is not that good explanation how it works, and why really I need to move right now. Maybe I have to wait until somebody will explain it. Like there will be a lot of teams that already implemented this tool, and I will just like look and repeat their experience. Okay, that is a good question. Also, we hear from clients that there are not a lot of resources to allocate to this migration, because you have to change the measurement process. And really, a lot of clients don't want this like year-on-year data. They just don't want to move right now, because it needed to resources being allocated, and they don't have it, or they don't have the budget for the partner who can make them do that without any kind of resource on their side. So that is the second point. And also there is a cohort of users or users of Google Analytics, of clients which are using Google Analytics, which already implemented like GA4, but they're more thinking about and talking about the features. Like there is some good new features, there's some good news. We're just playing with that. But like when it comes to a real task, to get a report, well, for example, a report to evaluate efficiency of the campaigns, they're starting to push it back because like it's not really understandable how to do that right now. So we are going back to Universal and to start to analyze there. Just maybe we can leave this Google Analytics 4 just in case where it starts being understandable to us, and somebody will explain how to behave with that. And that is a good question, and we will tie to this issue, tie with this issue to our agenda of today's meeting, today's webinar. So today we're gonna talk about a real task. We will take it from Universal Analytics. We will like compare how to do the task in Universal Analytics and in GA4. We'll compare the components of this task and try to understand how to interpret the metrics and if are they the same. If, for example, tomorrow you need to change the Universal Analytics to Google Analytics 4, you will be ready to interpret the metrics and get the insights. And at the end, we will discover our options to dashboarding based on Google Analytics and the analysis based on Google Analytics. So it will be like a 45 minutes of Google Analytics for description. And this is just like an intro because there are a lot of new features. And I'm not going to go like, this is a new feature and the next new feature. I will just explain on a real task, which is the following. So when we're talking about marketers and how they use Google Analytics, usually they have one big issue to solve, like to evaluate the efficiency of the campaigns, to understand how digital campaigns are performing. And the task is like to calculate, for example, the KPI, like return on ad spend, or CPA if you're in a lead gen project, or cost per lead, depends on the KPI you are working to. And to do that, we can go back to Universal Analytics and take a report, which might be a well-known report. If not, don't worry, I'll describe it. But it's like a structure of a reporting, which is looks like a print screen from the result from a specific period. How did you perform, like, for example, last week? And divided by, drilled down by campaigns. So here we can see the return on ad spend metric. So to calculate this metric, we need to understand from which components this metric consists of. And I'm ready to describe these components here. So the first one is, of course, the dimensions. So what we're really what we're analyzing here. It could be source medium campaign, also keyword at the content, but I didn't add them to simplify my speech here. The second component is like a frontline metric right now in Universal Analytics and as well in Google Analytics, the users. So why it's a frontline? Because we're talking about the user-based model in Google Analytics 4. The third one is a kind of a holy war metric, a holy war component. It's a sessions. And we will get also to describe why it's a holy war, how it differs to Universal and between Universal and Google Analytics 4. The fourth component is also well known, transactions. For some reasons, it could be conversions or goals. If we're talking about Universal Analytics, if you're a lead gen project, you usually calculate your conversion rate to goals. And we also try to describe the difference when we get to this component. And the fifth component is the metrics, which has to be joined to and the data which should be uploaded to Google Analytics Universal from different sources. So it's not taken from the web tracker, it is taken from ad platforms, and you need a specific tool which in automatic way will use the API of Google Analytics, data import API, and import the data on a daily basis here. So that is how the simple task to calculate and to understand, get a print screen of how my KPIs are done in drilled down by campaigns. That's just a report we might need in Google Analytics 4. So I'm not going to the interface right now. I'm not switching to the interface right now because it will take a lot of time. I would like to at first to describe and go to some kind of a theory part. Sorry for that, by the way. I know you like a lot of interactions, but let's get to the theory part at first and describe the components and the difference between these two products, these two tools, Universal Analytics and GE4. So the first component is the sources. We mentioned it before, and of course in Google Analytics 4 you have the same source medium campaigns, but what can differ there? At first, we have to say about the UTM marking. It is completely the same, nearly the same globally, don't have any kind of changes, and it's still valid. So you have to mark your campaigns with UTM. You have to at the same time check it strictly, because if you have a lot of mistakes in the marking, then the costs or the data from ad platforms won't match with Google Analytics data, and that will cost you a lot of hours to manually collect the report you really needed and to evaluate the efficiency of the campaigns. So this is completely not changing, but there are some other changes, and it started with the session dimensions, which here you have more source dimension that you have in Universal Analytics. What are the differences? So there are the source session source, and it is like similar to GA4 or to GA Universal. But in case GA Universal, the session is a central metric session object, which is like all the other objects. Most of the other objects are joined to this session object. In Google Analytics 4 is just a metric. This session is quite similar to Universal Analytics, this session dimension. And also in Google Analytics 4, they have the first user source, which is the user level dimension. And it helps to calculate, for example, if the sources, if, for example, the user comes first to your website, and you need to understand, and you need to calculate, for example, the cohort reporting from the source to the value in period of time. So you have to be careful here when you're choosing for your report these types of dimension. If you choose, for example, the first user source and trying to compare to Universal Analytics, that won't this metrics won't be comparable. If you want to do that exercise, then it would be better to take session source as a dimension, as well as session medium, as well as session campaign, and so on. One more interesting thing that could affect your data in this component. In Universal Analytics, there is no protection against spam referrals. For example, if any user can go to the console, see in which user property, Google Analytics property, you're sending your data, you can take this ID of this property and send whatever he wants to by using measurement protocol. And kind of painful for some projects because analysts have to filter it out. In Google Analytics 4, there is an option to use a secret key for this data protection. So for this, only your measurement protocol hits will appear in the interface of your Google Analytics. So that could a bit change the results. For example, in the universal, you can see just a bit more user data when it comes to the spam, but it don't have to confuse you. So you must just know that in universal, in Google Analytics 4, it is better, it's solved better. And one more thing, it doesn't influence on the data, but it gets your working with this data inconvenient, and there is no custom channel groupings in GA4 by now. That's the keyword, by now. That means that if, for example, you are a paid social traffic manager and you want to group Facebook CPC, like Twitter, like LinkedIn, in one group, and to understand the overall evaluation in the project, in your project, then you cannot do it right now with using the Google Analytics 4 interface. So basically, I can say that there is not a lot of changes, and if you will be careful with the session source and using the first user source, you'll get the result that you're expecting here. But we're moving to the next component, and it is really huge here, is users. We already mentioned it as the frontline metric, but now we have to describe why it's different. In Universal Analytics, it calculates in this user metric, it calculates the number of cookies, or in other words, the number of unique browsers on unique devices. And it is not more like about users, it's just more about like cookies. In GA4, they're using user ID, if you have one, if you have it there in your measurement system. And you are, like, for example, you have login or any other kind of measurement to get this user ID, to generate user ID. It is like the dimension which helps to combine different client IDs into one user, and it will appear in this metric as one user in your reports. As well as if you are using user ID in cross streams, in a cross platform. If you have, for example, login user in app and in web, and your app is like a leading platform, you want to measure it. Also, it will calculate and aggregate on the user metric. They will count this user as one. And the third option we have here, the third point why the data is different, the data between Universal Analytics and Google Analytics 4 differs, is Google Analytics signals. And this is more complicated than it seems to be, because Google Analytics signals is some kind of, in a short words, some kind of a knowledge that Google has about like users across the internet and their sources, and can merge the data on their side to show you what real users they was on your site, and it cannot be defined on a user level, but it's aggregate. You can see this aggregate metric in your reports. This is all about the user, but you should be careful here with the GDPR restrictions, because if your legal team does not allow you to send anything, any data to Google, for example, don't publish any data to Google employees, then you have to switch this option off. And the good news is that you can control it now. So you have the ability to switch off this sending data to Google Signals. Also, we had a webinar last time about the data quality. I won't get a lot through this, but if you, we were talking about this point last month. I will give you a link in this presentation to the last webinar. But if you are talking about unconsented users and the users who are willing not to be like tracked by on a user level dimension, then all their events will appear in Google Analytics for as like different event, different user. So every event will have like a new user, and it will be tracked in your Google Analytics. It's for unconsented users. And Google now, they are testing the alpha option about the modeled users when they help to combine the data from this unconsented user in one modeled user, of course, not on the user level, but on aggregate level of this metric. So, and talking about this, and to sum up all that was said, if we're talking about users and reports, you will see fewer users in GA4 than in Google Analytics reports. It's not about that the same metric, it's just a different metric. The user in Google Analytics 4 is not the users that you have in Google Analytics Universal, and you have to understand that because it will be easier to work with this data when you have this report. Moving forward, we have sessions. That's also a very interesting topic because, like, for some reasons, when GA4 was announced, a lot of people thought that there won't be, in case of the event level, event-based model and user-based model in Google Analytics 4, there won't be sessions. There are sessions right now, and you can use it in reports as a metric, but it's just a metric, not the whole system, not the whole model that it was in Universal Analytics. And of course, it is calculated in a different way. So what are the differences? The first, that's kind of tricky one because usually everybody forgets that it happens, but in Universal Analytics, a session is restarted at midnight. So whenever a user comes to your website, for example, at 5 minutes before midnight, doing some actions, and all his actions after the midnight will be registered as a second session of this user. In Google Analytics 4, they don't restart it at midnight, but you may say that it's not that huge difference because like how much people there at midnight, and I can agree, but the next point is bigger than the first one. And next point is about that in Google Analytics 4, there are like when one person changed his source or medium or campaign which he came from, the session will restart in Google Analytics Universal. I mean, in Google Analytics 4, the session is not restarted. So let's see on the screen. You can see an example for like it could happen very regular when a visitor comes like via Google CPC, do something on their website, leave a tab, and then like within the timeout period, for example, within the 30 minutes, he comes back with a Google Organic. And that will be two different sessions in Universal Analytics. In GA4, it will be one session, and there will be just an information on the event level that you have different types of sources which were registered by this session. And one last, and this is the most influencer to the changes of how sessions are calculated option. So this is about the timeout period. By default, it is the same 30 minutes, but when we're talking about GA4, there is some other events like time events, like scroll events, which are helping to move this timeout, to move this timeout and prolong the session, extend the session. So also to sum up, there are some changes. The sessions calculated in a different way, and in your reports, you might expect fewer sessions than in GA Universal if you have the same type of measurement. But it also is just like a different types of sessions, not that you get used to in Universal. And we're going to speak about conversions. By now, it's all about the theory, and then go to the Google Analytics 4 interface. So here we are comparing the method of calculating goals with the conversions in GA4. Goals was in Universal. And the main difference is that the goal is actually not the like counting metric. It is like the answer was like this activity you wanted to track in this specific session or not. So it's like calculates the number of sessions with this kind of activity. So for example, if there was 2 purchases in one session, you will see in goals only one action, only one session with goal. That's just that. Of course, as in Google Analytics, counts every instance of the conversion event. And if you are comparing transactions to transactions and you did the measurement correct, then there won't be a difference. But if you compare goals to conversions, there will be a difference in your reports. So you have to expect in Google Analytics 4 more conversions than you had in Universal Analytics, just because of this type of processing your data. And also a great news that for some reasons there were only 20 goals in Universal Analytics per view. Now it's up to 30%, 30 events can be used as the conversions, and there was no like low limits to the number of events to be tracked. So it like added some context on the way how you work with Google Analytics 4. So I promised to go to the interface, but I kind of lied. So we also would like to, we will look on this report. It is GA4 report. It is a standard report. And at first, we would like to understand what's the difference in the comparison of these components. What do we have here in this report? What do we not have? So we have this session source component. We definitely have the users, but as to remember, it's different users. We have sessions, engaged sessions. That's a great metric. Both metrics are great, but they're calculated in a different way in comparison to Universal Analytics. And you have here the conversion, the fourth component of your return on ad spend report with the, of course, revenue. But like this is all components you have in the standard reporting, and you don't have any kinds of metrics for ad spend, ad clicks, impressions, for non-Google campaigns or for Google campaigns as well in standard reporting. The good news that they have this metrics in other types of reporting in Google Analytics, which I will show you later. But there is the main reason why it has a cross here. That is, there is no API right now to make a data import in an automatic way, not to do it manually and not to import your costs in a manual way. So you just like maybe have to wait for this option to be switched on. But right now you have like this type of report without costs and without costs. And it's kind of not possible to calculate return on ad spend using only Google Analytics. We have to like stop here. And on the next point, we will understand how to do it in with other reporting solutions. I promised, once again, I promised to show you the interface. This is the interface. So it's it has like almost the same type of interface, but there is different metrics here, like engagement rate. Also, it's like a new version of bounce rate, but it's counts a completely different way. And this is standard reporting, so it cannot be customized right now, but they have another type of reports, means which call it Explore, and we will get back to that. So to finish this topic, what else influence on your data, on your statistics? There is some other option. There are some other cases, but I will just explain the first one. It is about the cardinality. So this is a reference to Charles Farina, and you can see the link to Twitter, so you can go there and read about that more. I'll just, in a short words, I will explain that cardinality is about if you have, for example, dimension with like landing pages, and there is like about 50,000 unique values in this dimension you have, then Google Analytics Universal will aggregate all the data into this other row, all that over this 50,001 unique value. In GA4, it works a bit differently. At first, the cardinality is lower, so there is about 20-30K for that. And when we're speaking about how they are processing it, they can use every kind of dimension to like use the aggregation. And for example, if you don't have this kind of landing page in your report, but you have it in your model, in your Google Analytics, they can also use this, can aggregate your data into this other row. And even if you don't have it in your this kind of report, you are looking in standard interface. There are other options. You can read it after our webinar. I'm not going to stop on that, but we have to make some kind of a conclusions there. First, when reading your GA report, you have to understand, like you are, for example, you're a marketer, you just need a report, and based on what I've said before, you have to understand the reasons of the metrics and comparability to GA4, to GA Universal, and to understand how this metrics have been calculated, because they are calculated in a different way and they have different limitations. That's the first point. Of course, Google Analytics 4, as we see it in the standard reporting, cannot cover all the options today. So, for example, it cannot provide us with return on ad spend report, but that not should stop you of doing the dual setup or to doing the migration, full migration, if you don't need the universal right now. Because like in next years, you will need to compare apples to apples if you need this kind of year-to-year report or month-on-month report. And if you think that you can use your universal analytics data and compare it to Google Analytics 4, you shouldn't think about that more. It's really different. So one more word. I wanted to explain more about GDPR here and GDPR compliance, but like it will take more than 20 minutes more, and like it's not, it is out of the scope of this meeting, but we have to say something about that, because usually GDPR compliance are going with GA4, but to be honest, it's not going with GA4, it's going with, it's holding hands with Google Analytics overall, like with Universal and 4. And the difference between Universal and Google Analytics 4 is that Google wants to solve these restrictions and to be compliant, and all the options they invent, all the new features that are coming to according to GDPR, they are only being implemented in GA4. So in Universal, for example, there is no IP anonymization. In GA4, there are IP anonymization. And just to give you something about that, I've made an action plan or like a list of things what you should do if you're choosing a Google stack and you're okay with that and your legal team is okay with that and you want to be compliant to GDPR using Google Stack. So there is a list. You will also receive this link and go through the all the action plan points, and also you will have the reference and to the articles where you can read about that more. So yeah, sorry for my voice, but I will proceed. Once again, what is the main point? I think you at this point you think that, okay, I've got that there is difference. Just like, can I get my report? Please answer me that question. I just don't understand if I should go there or not, because like if I need this kind of a report and I cannot have it, that it is useless. And yes, there are three options which I will show you in a minute. So the first option I already announced is Explore. It's the different types of reporting, and I show you it in the interface. Just give me a second. This is, if you can see my screen, this is an universal, this is a Google Analytics 4 interface called Explore. And you can see here some kind of a sheets with a drag and drop options for dimensions and metrics. And already I've done some work before our webinar, so you can see here the metrics which we already been talking about, like total users, sessions, transactions, and there are some other metrics which we have here, like non-Google costs, like clicks, like impressions, for example, if you need them, and we lost somewhere, but there is some other metric like, yeah, return on Google ad spend, on Google ad spend. I've added here. And so if the API works in several months, for example, we can fill this metrics with the data by using the special tools. And if you need to calculate, to understand the return on ad spend for a campaign in just a few moments, few clicks, then you can use this type of reporting in Explore Google Analytics 4. What are the advantages? The first advantage is the few clicks. Of course, if you can do it within a few clicks, that's a great one, great advantage. But it might have sampling. So if you have in the period of time you are analyzing more than 10 million events, then you might have your data, you might catch the sampling, and you have to deal with that. It will tell you that if you're having sampling in this report or not. There is a button right over the report. You've seen what I've shown. It is like, it is here. So this button shows you the sampling level. It doesn't have like predefined attribution models, a lot of predefined attribution model. Only attribution model that is available right now in this kind of exploration is last non-direct click. In case of that, you have different types of reporting Google Analytics 4. You can compare their different attribution model, but not in this report. Also, there is like non-flexible data model. For example, if you are not e-commerce, but SaaS business, it will be hard to calculate that metrics like subscription because it's like totally different. And Google Analytics model is not that flexible to do that. And no API, as I've told you before, no API for data import. So you cannot calculate right now a return on ad spend in automatic way. The second option is to get all your ad cost data, to use a tool which can upload this data, for example, in Google Sheets or in Data Studio. And to get a Google Analytics 4 data in Data Studio and to blend them. Also, it can take just a few clicks. I'll show you this report. I have one prepared for you. This is like a simple report just based on the ad costs. You have here in the table all the metrics for ad costs, for ad platforms, which you're expecting. This is the Google Analytics 4 metrics, and this is our calculated metrics like CPA or return on ad spend. And I'll just to show you how easy it could be done. Here you just need to add your Google Analytics 4 data source or universal. It also is working for universal, and you need like a Google Sheets. Is not this example works on with a Google Sheets where all the data is processed to in this kind of structure, in unified structure from all the campaigns like Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and so on. It's processed in one unified structure and automatically uploaded and automatically scheduled, and could be added to your report by just connecting this data source. And the next thing you should do is to blend this data by date, source, medium, and campaign. So it's quite an easy exercise. So, and if you would like to use this kind of template, if you like it, you just need to like give an access to add channels to Obox BI and give an access for this Data Studio report to your Google Analytics 4 or Google Analytics Universal. Kind of simple one, kind of simple solution. It can be connected with like different types of tools. It don't have a flexible data model because it uses a Google Analytics data, and it also has only the attribution models which you have in your Google Analytics connector. And the third option, I won't describe it in a lot of words, but the third option is to use the raw data which could be imported to Google BigQuery by the export which you have in Google Analytics 4. Or you can stream your data by using Obox server-side tag for GTM, which is free to use, to Google BigQuery. And when you get this raw data, then you can use, like when you can build your own model, you can do your own transformations for attribution. You can avoid the ITP problem. If you don't familiar with that, you can also look our previous webinar, and I described this issue. I described there this issue, and of course it needs data analyst with SQL skills, because you get only the raw data, and there you can do whatever you want with this raw data. You can do whatever you want with the dashboarding, but you need somebody to do that for you. So, for example, it should be a data analyst there. Yes. So by that point, I would just like to mention that there are some. There is a question about API. I'm not sure that I can answer that question, because I'm not sure that I can give an information about the roadmap, because it is it can be announced right from my side. So we have to just look further when it will be available, and look for the updates from the Google side. But yeah, definitely they have this metrics, and they have this data imports functionality, but just we have to wait. I hope we have to wait. So by that point, we proved that the solution, there are some solutions to get dashboarding, but like is the Google Analytics 4 is just a data source for dashboarding. We just we need to use the data studio, and Google Analytics is also a tool which has reports. Is it useless or like not? And the answer we have right now that the Google Analytics is has a lot of credits to become a great tool, not for the dashboarding, but for analysis. By analysis, I mean answering the questions, not like looking on the print screen on the results, what you have, what return on ad spend you have, but to ask the questions how and why. And we're gonna go through this in next 5 minutes. There are several questions that you might have need to ask to Google Analytics, for example, when you already get the information about your return on ad spend. And we have to move to our explore report once again. I just don't think that everybody can see it, but I'll try. So, for example, you have all that metrics. What else you can see? What else we can do with your Google Analytics to understand? For example, you have this campaign called Smart, and it has some transactions, it has some sessions, users, and you want to evaluate why the conversion rate is lower than you expected. You want to understand why it happens, and you can go with the further questions. For example, to understand, to get some more information about these campaigns, you can add some events to your report. For example, it could be add to carts. Let's add it before transactions, so it will be easier to read the report. Item views, the total of items which been viewed from this items, I mean products, been viewed by this campaign, by the users from this campaign. For example, a checkout. Let's stop here. And you, by a few clicks, you have an information about the funnel of this campaign. So you have here the checkouts, you have here add to carts, you have here transactions. You get more information about how user behave on the full funnel, on the full way to get to make the conversion. But of course, that is not the easiest. This is the easy way, but not maybe maybe not the best way to see to understand the nature of this conversion rate. So for this point, for this case, we have a different technique, which called, for example, funnel exploration. And you have here some steps. I already predefined it, so you can use your own steps here. For example, you have a lot of events, and you want to see, like a marketer, you want to see how user go through this funnel. What is the abandonment rate for every step? And you can set up to 10 steps here. You can modify the movement through this funnel. And you also can take this segment. Oh, I didn't show you the easiest way to create this segment. So here is the easy way to create the segment. So you just have to click right button and you get the segment here. You can also build an audience from this segment, but it's build it very, very in an easy way. So, and we have here this segment, it's called Smart. This is our campaign, and we can add it here. And maybe we would like to, we don't have any information about only this kind of segment, only this kind of campaign. We need the comparison here. And we can use, for example, all the Google CPC traffic to understand if the conversion rate in that specific campaign is lower or higher in comparison to all the traffic. So in a few moments, it will upload the data, and I will show you the structure of reports. So you have here the comparison for every step of the abandonment rate between these two segments. You can see like you can do a breakdown by like regions, like any other dimensions which you need, and understand the real conversion. For example, let's us move out the breakdown by regions, and we can understand and compare conversions between two segments, the segments of the campaign we're analyzing, and total like paid from Google CPC. Also need a few clicks, a few moments to update. So here's the comparison for every step and the conversion of this of the steps. For example, like on the item view, the conversion is lower. Also, on add to cart, the conversion is lower than average in paid traffic. So it looks like this campaign you are looking on, it performs not that good as you might expect it, and the conversion is also a problem. But like, let's see what we can compare when we are talking about segments. And for example, you have this step like promotion view. For example, you have on your website, you did a promotion, you made the event which tracks this promotion, and you want to understand if the visitors comes from this website or from this campaign smart, do they see this promotion, like this internal promotion on your website? And if it if it drives your conversion rate, so if the conversion rate here is higher than on average on with or without this view promo. And we can do easily it in the segment overlap, getting the first segment smart. We already predefined the promotion view segment, and we would like to see what's going on with this overlap of the segments. Just a few moments. Oh, here it goes. Like these segments are not good at overlapping. They're just a few active users that was in two segments, but we can see that there's only when visitors come from this campaign smart and they see this promotion, they make the transactions. Whenever they don't see the promotion, they don't do the conversion. They don't convert. And that's an interesting point. So you find that some kind of an insight, and you would like to understand what to do with that insight. And Google Analytics 4 has some like great additional segments which you can use and you can add. Like it has predicted segments. Like for example, this segment searches for the audience which are likely to buy in the next 7 days. And by adding this segment, we want to understand, so what users we have to focus on, which are likely to be converted from this campaign. For example, to build an audience, we create this segment and build an audience, for example, for the last 30 days, which can be sent to Google Analytics CPC as a separate audience, which you can make and build a campaign with your knowledge that the promotion you've shown on your website works for that audience. So that's the kind of way to search for the insights. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to finish now, but there are just a few slides. At first, I would like to invite you to the next webinar, which will be in a month, and we're going to focus on the insights, on the last mile before like return on ad spend growth. We're gonna take some dashboards, and we're gonna understand how to get the insights from these dashboards. What are the meaningful what is the meaningful we can take from these dashboards, and so on. It seems to be quite interesting. I hope so. So we will send you an invitation 2 weeks before this webinar, and it's also is free. And at the end, takeaways. The first, understanding the new ways of metric calculations is in GA4 is necessary, because if you don't understand how users are being calculated, how sessions are being calculated, there is it's not possible to get the insights, because you won't understand how your tool is working. GA4 won't replace dashboarding. So the dashboarding is different kind of task, but it really helps to, it has a techniques and really helps to get the analysis while you figure out what your error was and you are not okay or okay with that. And at the end, I would like to share you following links, and I'm happy to hear your questions. You can write them down in our chat. While you're writing, I will describe the links. So the first, if you need to migrate to GA4 by yourself, you can download this checklist. It is just a number of action points you need to go through. You just can look on this and compare to what you're doing right now. If you need like some kind of individual consultancy based on your specific case on GA4, you can write us to ga4.obox.com, and we can give you one free hour of consultancy, and would like to hear your thoughts and hear your cases about moving to GA4, and we'll give you our opinion and maybe some useful links how to do that. Also, if you want to get the return on ad spend dashboard based on Google Analytics 4 or Google Analytics Universal data, just also write please to ga4obox.com, and we will like help you to do that. Just some options from your side is also needed. Some work from your side is also needed. And the last but not least, also I would like to share once again this link to GDPR compliance on Google Stacks. So if you need it, let's go through this. And here are my contacts. If you need me in person, please write me via LinkedIn or add me in the LinkedIn, or you can write me via mail. Any option is okay for me. So I'm open to all your questions, or if you don't have any right now, you can use one of these options, for example, to write me or to write to ga4obox.com with all your questions there. And thank you very much for all your attention. Here we have one question. OLG Universal is going to be enabled in June 2023, so the data will also not be available. How it can be transferred to GA4. So starting with the second question, the data does not migrate from Universal to GA4. That's the main problem. So that's why I'm talking today, this topic, that's why I'm speaking here. So to get data in GA4, you have to do different types of measurements, and the data won't migrate from Universal. That's the first point. And is the data is going to be available from the 1st of June 2023? I'm not sure that I remember the answer to this question. Maybe yes, maybe no. But like I think you cannot use this account and collect the data after the 1st of July 2023. So I hope that answers your question. So you have to think to migrate or make the dual setup to GE4 because the data won't migrate there from Universal. So I don't see any other questions. So if you have one, please write me in a LinkedIn if you have a questions about this webinar. If you don't have, please if you liked it, please share our link to this webinar. Maybe it will be useful for your colleagues. And the links also might be useful for somebody who wants to learn the new things about GA4. So we are happy to answer any questions, and we'll be happy if you will share some information about us. So thank you very much. Thank you for your attention, and see you on the next webinar in a month.